How did I get started in real estate? I got started accidentally, honestly. I went to UMass Dartmouth. I had a kind of a social media business. I started a couple of small clients around there. I actually saw an ad for Revolv. They were looking for a marketing intern. I sat down with Dennis at the time, who was the owner, and we went back and forth about what we could do. And I actually convinced him. I said, "Hey, let me take you on as one of my marketing clients." And again, it was looking back, I was very small, not really doing too much, but I felt like I was doing so much. I was putting social media posts out for different companies, and I was growing. I maybe had 5 clients at the time where I was doing a couple things for a week, a small little business. And then with that, it kind of developed and grew. So I started at Revolv. I was doing, I think 2 days a week I was doing marketing for them. And then I realized, I was like, wait a second, I'm making everyone else money. Why don't I do this for myself? And then to go step back from that, my parents have always been involved in real estate to some extent. My dad grew up in contracting. I was working construction with him. My day-to-day would look like I would go to school. After school, I'd go to soccer practice. After soccer practice, I'd go work on the houses. And now by work on the houses, I was lucky. He let me do my homework there and stuff like that. And if I finished my homework, I would work with him. So I promise you this, I made my homework take the whole time. He thought I was a very studious student. Again, I was, but I definitely dragged it out a little bit longer so I didn't have to go help with the manual labor side of things. But it was all hold a tape measure, different stuff like that to help him out. And then with that, I went into sales. My first year in sales, I didn't do well. I think I only sold 3 houses that year. I was a junior in college at the time, was doing it kind of part-time. And then my second year into it, I think I did 6. And I was like, holy shit, I'm rich. I think I pocketed like 50 grand, 55,000, something like that. All my expenses were food. I was like, oh, I'm rich. Next year out of school, I did 9, still okay. Nothing crazy, but I was like, damn, like I really got this. But I wasn't working that hard, and I'm embarrassed to say it to an extent. I'd probably come in at 11, leave by like 2:30. I had my little routine in my clients, but I wasn't growing. I wasn't working this like a career. And I remember sitting down with Dennis, and we sat inside Somerset Grill. And we went there, and he was like, hey, are you going to start working or what? Like, what are you doing? You have all this potential. And that has been a word or a theme that's been really kind of around in my life. Cory, you always have all this potential, all this potential, all this potential. And I kind of resent that word because I feel like at some point I won't have all the potential. It's he had the potential. And I've heard those stories with specific people. Oh, he had so much potential. He had so much potential. And that's one thing that really speaks to me is I don't want anyone to say that about me. I don't want to be the kid, and I'll say it. I don't like to call myself a kid, but I'll say it. I don't want to be the kid that had all the potential, and then all of a sudden, in a couple of years, it just flips to, ooh, he had potential. He could have been someone. He could have done this. Because we all know people like that who have all the potentials, all the talent, all the skills, but for whatever reason, don't put it together. I think I'm blessed. I have a great family. I've had a great opportunity here at Revolv. And to not truly maximize that and see how much I can do for myself personally, and how big I can get or how big I can take it or what we can do in the team around me that we can do. That's the only vision I have right now, and that's why I got into real estate and why I'm still in it. There's a ton of middle kind of in there. At some point, I even got a whole other job, and that was a real low moment for me. And not many people actually know that I went to. It was probably my third year or so, not my third year. I think it was at the end of my second year. I was doing all right. I graduated college. And I was getting a lot of pressure from my family and just from friends, from whatever it was. Hey, Cory, what are you doing? You have a bachelor's in marketing. Don't you want to go do something like that? You're in sales. Is that what you want to do forever? And I was like, oh, the grind of sales is so hard. Do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? And it was probably during a lull period. I'm like, all right, I don't have any transactions. I'm seeing that next step of all right, for me to get to that 12 deals a year, that 20 deal a year, to really do this at a high level, it's going to take a lot of work. And I was torn in myself, like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm kind of comfortable with where I am. And that comfortability is really the death of you. The second you get comfortable, it's where something kind of happens. At least for me, I feel kind of comfortability is death. Uncomfortability is a product of growth, and that's something I'll always say. So I'll never forget, I walked into VD Mercedes right over here in Tiverton, Rhode Island, and I was gonna get a marketing job. And I saw my area, and yeah, no disrespect to VD, nice place, good people there. But I sat in there and I saw where I was gonna work, and they were putting me in a room with four other people who all had their headphones on, and they were just on their computers, kind of mindlessly working from 9 to 5 for, at the time, $18 an hour. And I was like, oh, that's not bad. So I remember I did the interviews. I went in for a second round of interviews, and I crushed the interviews, crushed them, absolutely crushed them. I remember the owner came in to meet with me too, and they were really trying to bring me on. And then I remember maybe a week later or so, they offered me the job. I said yes. I said yes to the job. And then that night, I couldn't sleep. And even right now, I'm getting this feeling. I felt almost disgusted. And I didn't enjoy that feeling. So I remember I walked in the next day, and it was at the Revolv Somerset, and I called the guy back. I said, hey, I don't want the job. He goes, what happened? I said, I just don't think it's for me. I actually think I made an excuse, and I was like, oh, you're not paying me enough. Just to kind of justify why I wasn't taking it. So I was like, oh, you're not paying me enough. So he goes, hold on, let me see what I can do. He called me back maybe an hour later. He's like, hey, I got you $2 more an hour. And I'm sitting there like, whew, I wasn't expecting that. I thought this was just going to go away. And I think at the time I was making $20. It would have been, the offer was for $20 an hour. In comparison, that was what my family was making at the time. Both my mom and my dad, what they were making at their hourly job was $20 an hour. So I was like, oh, it's in hindsight, not in hindsight, but in that perspective, or my perspective at the time, I was turning down a ton of money. And even my family thought I was turning down a ton of money. So I didn't tell them I got the job. I just told them I didn't get it. But after that call, I remember walking out of the back room, and I walked into Dennis's office, and I just bawled. I remember crying, and he was like, what is going on? And I said, I'm not ready to give up on myself yet. And that was the moment that kind of all clicked. I said, and that's what it felt like. It was like, I'm not ready to give up myself. But I was apologizing to him. I said, I feel so bad. I've been going behind your back. I've been taking other interviews. And he was like, whoa, it's okay. He goes, whatever you want to do with your life, I got your back. And I'll never forget that conversation, truly. And I truly believe that to this day. Whatever I needed to do, Dennis would have my back for certain. But he said it. He goes, if that's the direction you want to go. He goes, but I just think that's death for you. And I know it's extremes, and we're talking to extremes. But that's kind of the level I feel with this. It is extreme. So I was like, I'm not ready to give up on myself yet. And he goes, all right, take the day. Tomorrow morning, let's meet at Somerset Grill. And we went over to Somerset Grill that next morning, and we wrote down on like a notebook, okay. And he made me sign it too. It was kind of like a couple things. I will make 10 calls. I will do this. I will do this. But at the end of it, it was, I will do 14 transactions in the next 12 months. That next year, I did 31 deals. I had a breakout year. I worked my ass off. But it all started to make sense. I made more money that year than what both of my parents made combined. I made double what I would have made taking that job at VD. And I still think about that moment, how my life could have went totally differently. But it didn't. I made a decision to bet on me. And I believe in me, and I think that's what keeps me in this business. But it's also the hardest part about this business, is that self-belief, because no one is going to believe in you. I was lucky enough to have some mentors and a family to support me. But even my family didn't believe in me. That's the reality of it. They didn't. What I was doing was so outside of the box, was so unconventional, so untraditional. I come from a Portuguese family where the American dream is you grow up, you go to school, you go to college, you get your job after college, and you work really hard, but you always work for someone else. There is an element of fear that holds a lot of people back, and especially my family. And I'm trying to break that mold. I think fear is a terrible thing, and we're all scared to bet on ourselves. But you have to find that passion to bet on yourself and really, truly believe in you and what you can do. And it's tough. Not everyone has that motivation. Life gets in the way. I get it. We're not all built this way. And my story is very different from everyone else's. And as I've grown through real estate, I've learned that not everyone has the same goals or aspirations. So you have to figure out what your goals and what your aspirations are. But I think real estate for me has checked every single box and then some, and has opened up a whole new world and a life for me that I never thought possible. But not only for me, for my family and for the generations to come. That's what's really important to me, is leaving behind that legacy. So my hope is that I can build a great team here, build some great agents, and help them build their family and open up opportunities for them to chase a dream that I once had and I still have, chasing a dream. Um, and I think that's really cool, and that's what the power of real estate is. It can change your life. There's so many different facets to it. Well, yes, it's sales. You're selling yourself. That's all you're doing, is selling yourself to other people. Um, and I think that's something I've gotten really good at, and it's something I even still struggle with, is that self belief a little bit. But it's something everyone will struggle with, and I think that's part of what keeps me growing, is that constant pit in my stomach of just uncomfortability, and I will continue to seek discomfort. And by continuing to seek discomfort, I'll be pushing myself further and further. I don't know where it's gonna go. I know that was a long-winded answer about how I got into real estate, but I think it's important to tell my story. That was long.
How long do you think that was?
10 minutes.
Pretty good. 11 minutes, 30 seconds. I mean, it was good. It was good content. It definitely, for editing, that makes it a lot tougher.
Sorry, I just kept going.
No, I didn't want to cut you off because you were on a roll, so I was like, no, it's good content.
Maybe that whole thing just gets one video.
It could definitely be